Hi. The theme of my talk is, what if the meaning of life is the same as the definition? I realize that the meaning of life is, a lot of people think that that's a personal thing, personal decision, and that it might be arrogant to even talk about such a subject. So I'm going to start my talk for TED with something that we can all, I believe, find common ground on. And this diagram is where I would start. The way I see it, and I think that most people would agree, when searching for meaning in life, we have ourselves, our ego, and we're trying to figure out how to connect to something larger than ourselves, the larger world. There's a lot of different words for that, but the most common one in Western civilization would be God, something larger that transcends ourselves, that we connect to, that gives us meaning. My talk will then move on to the fact that this dialectic between God and the self has been laid out in many ways, but I think that the Native Americans of the plains here in North America, their medicine wheel is one of the most useful ways that it's laid out, because the medicine wheel is something that we can kind of all find how we apply ourselves to. Up here we would have the larger reality that we connect to, down, which is the north. The medicine wheel is laid out on the compass. Down here we would have the ego or the self, and we go through illumination or awareness of what the world or God is about. Here's our self, and then here's our path to how to connect to God. And we all find ourselves at various moments in time at different parts on this wheel. But my talk isn't actually about the Native American medicine wheel. It's about how I think that in the modern world, when we look at it this way, we could find a lot of agreement if we lay it out like this, and this is begins to be the heart of my talk, where when we accept whatever it is we call God, we accept this reality that we live in, and what that looks like. And when we accept this reality that we live in, it starts with accepting this universe. And within that, it kind of starts with accepting the earth that we live on, and what it means to be a life form on the earth. So the heart of my talk will begin to be what it means to be a life form on the earth. And that actually comes first, and kind of this going around this dialectic, around this medicine wheel, before we get back to the self. So the theme of my talk is that the meaning of life and the definition are the same, because once you've accepted this reality, you get into the idea of accepting again, what it means to be alive. And there are certain aspects to the definition of life that are fairly well agreed upon by biologists and philosophers. And I have narrowed it down to three that I think would be fairly commonly agreed upon for earthly life. That all earthly life metabolizes energy, meaning it eats and it breathes, or it produces food, eats it and breathes. And it has cell membranes, or it's individuated. It's separate from the external reality. And then the other thing about life is that it maintains its genes, maintains its DNA. And that's the heart of the talk that I want to go into, because I think that the significance of that is something that is so profound that it really needs to be talked about more in our society and our civilization. Now, I sell solar energy. That's what I do for a living. My background is in philosophy, as you might have guessed, and in physics. And I realized that this clarity that seems to be lacking on a very fundamental and deep level about how sustainability, which is what this actually ends up being about, is as profound and intensive a value as in the human situation that we can have. And there's great arguments that haven't been made for why sustainability is a crucial value. And it comes from this understanding of how the self relates to the larger reality in a way that I think that we can all begin to agree upon better than we have as a civilization. That's the theme of my talk.